Commissioner Burnworth,
Here.
Vice Chair Guillen,
Here.
Commissioner Haverness,
Here.
Commissioner Harvey,
Here.
Chairman Hoff.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Harvey.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to public appearances. Members of the audience are invited to speak on any item on or off the agenda. If the item is on the agenda, item will be permitted the opportunity to address the Planning Commission when the matter is considered. If you wish to speak on a matter which is not on the agenda, you will be given the opportunity to do so at the public comment section. When wishing to address the Planning Commission, please rise and state your name and address for the record. The chairman reserves the right to place a time limit on each person's presentation for 5 minutes. Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, we'll move on. Our new business, D1, continue public hearing, discussion action, conditional use permit 1907. Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a continuance for a project located on Highway 86 and 15th Street. This is a conditional use permit to allow the use and operation of the gas station, fast food drive-through, and the sale of off-site alcoholic beverages. We received a request from Mr. Jenigan. He wants to continue the meeting. He won't be able to be here. And staff recommendations is to deny the request. And I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
So
Madam Chair, good evening. At this point, with a continued item, you may choose to continue the public hearing. Tonight, the applicant is here before you, so you may choose to give him an opportunity. I spoke with him previously to speak and introduce himself. I know, speaking with him, that he has asked that, other than introducing himself and briefly introducing the project, that he would also like to listen to the testimony of other members of the public through the public hearing, and then be able to reserve most of his comments for after those have been heard with your indulgence.
yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the members of the commission, staff, and those in the audience for being here tonight, hopefully to approve our project. What we have before you, my name is Chris Pito.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, address is 1011 Camino Del Mar, California.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name?
Chris Pito. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight, and as was stated, I'm available to answer any questions that may arise. The project before you tonight is the culmination of about 2 years' worth of work. Our design team, tenants, and staff have worked very closely to develop this particular project that's here before you tonight. Most of the work is done with our civil engineers, our architects, and tenants to develop a specific project. This is not a speculative project. What is presented tonight is a proposed phase development with 3 buildings. The front building is a 3,000 square foot convenience store with gas station, which is anchored by 7-Eleven. The middle building is a 6,200 square foot end cap drive-through retail building. And then there is a 5,400 square foot standalone single tenant retail building. At this point in time, we have tenants for all of the proposed buildings and are looking forward to begin construction hopefully this summer on the project. I understand that there was a presentation made at the last meeting, so if there are any other questions you have, I would be more than happy to answer those.
Can you tell us a little bit about the three businesses that'll be vacating those buildings?
At this point, the only one that we're stating is the 7-Eleven project at the corner. That's the anchor of the project. That's what's financially driving it. The other tenants are dependent on the project being approved. If the project isn't approved, then the other tenants won't go without that portion of it.
And the 7-Eleven will be the gas station?
Yes,
And do they intend to sell alcohol at this facility?
they do. That's part of the CUP that we're here asking for approval on tonight. Okay, I'm available if anything else comes up. Thank you.
Oh, I have another question for you. Is the sale of my understanding is that this property was in escrow. Is that still in escrow currently?
Yes,
So the city of Imperial still currently owns the property.
I believe so, yes.
And is there any contingencies upon the escrow to be closed?
Contingency is the approval of the project.
No, well, so if you guys don't get this project approved, you're not going to buy the property.
Yeah, the project has to be, so I don't do any spec developments. So spec meaning I'm just buying it on the prospect of something. So part of the proposal when we acquired the property was that there would be a development behind the project, which is what is presented here tonight. So this is what we're planning to build.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ray Robin. This is the project that they're talking about is the one in front of Frank Wright, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Definitely for all development here in town. I think that some concerns with this specific property is traffic flow and being a school where it's at. I actually live around on Belford Road, so I travel this site every single day in the morning during, when the school's there. There's you have curb and gutter all the way to where the school's at, and then there's a little jog in there where just basically it's unimproved, county. I think if you put anything right here that doesn't have Belford Road being extended to 86, it's going to be a huge issue. Based on the history of how I've watched this property kind of flow through this, multiple transactions in here, I'm pretty sure that there hasn't been any traffic studies done to take that into consideration. And the plan that I see does not have any connection to 86. So in an area that already has a traffic problem, you're going to create just more traffic that can't get out of there, has no way to basically escape that traffic issue when you turn around into Belford Road right there. If you don't have a access on the 86 where you can, maybe even a one-way access or something like that, I don't even see how the project will work. It'll just be completely cars stand still. Like for instance, right now, if you go in there during the school time to get coming from the north to the south, you have to go into the turn lane to go around all the cars that are waiting right there. So if you put a Jack in the Box, 7-Eleven, all this other stuff, unless we're talking about, widen it to a 4-lane road, a lot of different things. So I just look at this like, we're doing a lot of tax credit apartments and we're doing rezones and we're doing a lot of things, and, we're putting our name on our projects as a local developer, and we're going after AHSC cap and trade funds to bring millions of dollars in to take care of the infrastructure problems that the city of Imperial has. I understand what he's saying. He's not a spec developer, because I get that spec developing is, not the best way to do it. You want to get your project done. You have your fees, you have your costs. I just don't know if the infrastructure that really needs to take place there has been taken into consideration in what equations that the developer's putting together. And I just think that if you go that route without taking that stuff into consideration, you're going to have issues with the traffic, and then the development might not pencil out, in the long run with all things considered. But
I think one of the planning commissioners brought up a good point, is that the city has kind of pushed this thing through without ever offering it for sale or really ever disclosing it. The only thing I've ever heard about it was when it was being zone changed in the general plan amendment here. And I waited to hear, I actually had my eye on the piece, because I wanted to put a recreation facility for the youth, because, I mean, it's going to be tough to make it work right there. It's very limited as it is with the traffic, but it just kind of got pushed through, never got for sale, and whatever happened, and it ended up where it's at right now. So I think that the city has some bias on why they might want to approve this, to say the least. But I think to do that without taking into consideration the traffic is going to cause a huge liability, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for the school, the people around it, and especially, you know, the kids that are there going to school every day, teachers. So I just think you guys should take that into consideration. Thank you.
At the last meeting, we did discuss the traffic issue, and it was discussed that members of the city has reviewed this, and they don't feel there should be any traffic issues.
Well, let me clarify that for you. So on the site plan itself, the East 15th, which really is constrained as we sit here, especially during the drop-off and the pickup hours. Well, 15th on the portion that is on the developer proposed property will be expanded. And so there will be twice the capacity on 15th that there is now. Because that northern side of it will be expanded from 1 lane to 2 lanes. So that provides a couple things. One is that provides access to the project, but it also provides additional stacking for parents getting in and out of the school. And so whenever we look at a project from an economic development standpoint, from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, you certainly do have to look at that. If the commissioner would like me, I'll address briefly Mr. Robin's comment regarding the extension of Belford. When you're talking about an extension that really does not have a direct nexus to the project, and they do not own the land to do such a thing, it's questionable whether or not we would have a nexus to require it. Now, technically, you require anything you want under a CUP as long as it isn't a civil rights violation. I would question this, and I've talked with Mr. Robin numerous times. I've been working with him on projects that you're aware of up on the north side, maybe half a mile or so from where this project is, of some rooftops that are certainly needed to support retail development throughout the city. And so we're excited that they're working with the city now on a multitude of housing options, not just single family, but also multifamily. So I mean, I certainly appreciate his comments from that sense, but this property is zoned commercial. It really was always meant to be commercial. If there are proposals out there to turn this into recreational where there's somebody who can pay for that, I'm sure the city would be more than happy to try and entertain that. But as you know, parks are very expensive to build, and they're even more expensive to operate. But once you've taken the rest of your testimony, I'll walk you through the rest of this.
So on the drawings that the commission was presented with, it only looks like there's 1 lane. It looks like they're on East 15th Street. It only looks like you're adding an entrance into the parcel, not necessarily expanding it. And then I have another question. So that stoplight right there that goes across 86 and 15th Street, the left turns are only yield. Would that be changed as well, since you're going to have more traffic impacted?
Well, Thorne's going to show you the actual site plan, so you have that.
I have it in front of me. I have it in front of me. It doesn't look like you're adding a lane. Like on Imperial Avenue, it looks clearly, you can see there's adding a lane, but on East 15th Street, it still looks like there's only 1 lane, and then it turns into when you hit 86, there's a left-hand turn lane, and that's it.
Yeah, you already have that, the existing location. You have 2 lanes going east, going west. Maybe it's not that clear, but you have enough right away there to add the stacking lane. It is shown here. Maybe it's not that clear, but we have enough right away.
And what you can do to mitigate that, if you're not seeing it that way, you can say as part of a motion, if you got to that point, I want to make clear that there's a condition of approval added that shall require a second lane to make sure there are 2 lanes traveling on the north side of 15th. And we'll make that even clearer if needed. I mean, that's certainly, these plans are not the easiest things to read, especially when they're reduced to 8.5 by 11s, because they usually come in like this. So
I have it zoomed in on my iPad, so I can see it.
What's an iPad? No. And then the other item on the stoplight, is there a reconfiguration?
There's nothing proposed, as in previous meeting, as part of the approval of the project, the Development Review Committee, which is composed by Public Services, Fire, and Police Department, they did not identify any issues at that location.
If the lanes widen like is proposed in the plan, the one stoplight would have to be picked up and moved, right? Basically,
Potentially.
because you're going to make it 10 feet wider, because that's a lane width, correct?
It is.
So that one light has to be moved. But I mean,
It could.
But another lane is 10 feet. Is that not what a lane width
It
is?
is
It's
10 feet.
Yeah, okay. So you're adding 10 feet. So you're going to push the curb over, be north, roughly 10 feet. Now, another question I have for the developer here, you have a site plan, and with the reduction in the speed limit now, it's possible to have an access point from the highway, correct? With the now that we reduced the speed limit down from 50 to 45, it changes the diameters.
You could have along 86, you have the ability to have a driveway access to all the properties because we reduced the speed limit to 45.
Right, and I see your plan here, you've got a preliminary, I'm assuming preliminary, I mean, unless the engineering's gone beyond that point. Would that be something that you'd be willing or potentially interested in doing?
We would not. So if I could go through each of these, the traffic, the patterns, the access is probably the most important part of any project that I work in, regardless of the jurisdiction. And so the access, the ingress and the egress of the site, we spent a good portion of time on. Let me start with the 15th Street. So the request was made after the last hearing to look at the traffic and see what the plan was. So I went to the site and had my civil engineer with us, and we looked at the issues that were brought to our attention. And the way that it was explained to us is there was an issue with the queuing and stacking of cars waiting to pick up students at the school, and wondering how the flow could be improved. So between the curb lines, that is not a standard width street. So from the center line to the curb line, there's enough room to put in queuing for 3 cars for a right-hand turn lane and to have the continued pass-through. So it would just be done from the existing curb line to the center line of street. So we're not proposing moving the traffic signal, moving the curb line. None of that's included in any of this. As it relates to Highway 86, there are several issues that come into having the entrance. Number one, there's a irrigation ditch that runs along that side of the site, which would have to be taken into consideration. And then we have to put in a decel lane and an acceleration lane. So the old restriction on having an access point was because of Caltrans, and they don't want to have any entrances or exits off of a highway. Even with reduced speed, you can do it, but the cost associated of putting it in is prohibitive. We would have to extend it several hundred feet in each direction and change all the radius work, and everything along 15th Street would also probably have to be redone as well. So we spent a good portion of time trying to figure out if we could have that access, and we couldn't find a financial way to get it to work. It's too expensive.
Has anybody from your company consulted with the school across the street or any of the residents about this development? So in evaluation number 3 in the staff report, it states that the proposed location, size, design, and operating characteristics of the proposed use and the conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or material injurious to properties or improvements in the facility. So you're going to increase the traffic right in front of the school, and if you go there during the morning when students are getting dropped off, there's crossing guards all over, and even when they're getting picked up, it's it's kind of crazy. So I'm just wondered if you've talked to the school about any way you can help mitigate that because you are going to increase traffic in the area.
We noticed, everyone, we had a conversation with the school district as well, and we explained them what the situation was. There was a concern about the traffic, but we told him about the 15th Street widening, and he was okay with it.
And who did you speak with?
Brian Thompson.
Okay. Yeah, I just worry about, since you're you're CEQA exempt, you are going to add more pollutants into the air right directly across from the school where you have all the kids playing outside, and you're going to have a gas station, and that's going to throw emissions into the air. But since you're not required under CEQA, you're not going to do anything that's already to mitigate the air quality issues that you're going to contribute with the increased traffic in the gas station, and it's already next to Highway 86. So you already have these kids in an area that's more susceptible to air quality impacts. So I just have a lot of concerns with that, considering most of those schools, and that one's on the list to get put into the FLAG program with Imperial County Air Pollution Control District, where they're going to have a monitor sitting on top of the school.
Yeah, so you said you're not gonna widen the street,
Correct.
and you said they are gonna widen the street.
There's going to be a widening street on the south side.
So which side is gonna be
15th Street,
widened?
Not the location on,
From the curb line in, the width allows for a right-hand turn pocket and a pass-through. The curb line is not being changed. The width is not,
the width,
within the width
I'm
is
sorry, I do
there,
apologize.
it's a pass-through.
Okay, the width you already got, okay.
Right. And
How-
partially
okay.
so we don't have to move the traffic signal.
How much wider are you making it?
We're not making it any wider.
The street's not going to be any wider at all.
Correct.
You're adding the lane without widening.
Widening, okay.
Yes. I mean,
There are two, yeah, let me take, I speak
So you're really
city
not
and
doing anything
business.
but painting a line.
Yeah, but
Right.
that painting is somewhat important because that's the difference between one lane and two. So from a developer perspective, they're always worried about giving up land that they might need for parking and development. So from a developer perspective, absolutely not. But from a condition of approval perspective,
That the 2 lanes will be generated with the turn pocket and everything else out of the existing, and the developer will be responsible for the funds, which quite frankly isn't a whole lot of money, but will be responsible for doing that. Because that is an improvement to that project to mitigate the traffic in that area, to increase the flow and essentially increase capacity then for the school. So you're both right, if that makes sense.
Well, okay,
And they're going to
so
be the 10-foot.
for the benefit of
Correct.
my map here, how wide's the street right now?
40 feet.
Is it 40 or 50? Does anybody know?
We took it from a center line, and I think we had 24 feet from the center line. I can't tell you what the other side was.
So 24 feet going north.
Yes.
From the center line north to what we'll call the curb line is 24 feet.
But we don't know how wide the street actually is from curb to curb.
I don't know what the southern is because, when you're working on a project, you're typically working on
The center
Center
line.
line.
Yeah, no.
the center line.
So is building 1 your proposed gas station?
Right.
So you intend to sell alcohol within 600 feet of a school?
Correct.
That still has to go through its zone application, correct?
Has to go through
Okay.
ABC.
So that is not going to be on our conditions of approval to anything with ABC.
Chair, may I ask respectfully that you consider taking testimony from any other members of the public before we get into the...
Oh.
And it's only because then all of those issues from the public get put on the table as a point of transparency, and then between yourselves, the staff, and to some degree the applicant, we can go back and then hopefully...
My apologies, it's my
No,
first one
I'm
running,
trying to help
so...
you. And long ago, I was on a city council. I promise I'll never do it again. And so I've made much more mistakes than anybody here could ever imagine.
So anyone from the audience?
Good afternoon. My name is Roger Wagala. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of the Imperial Unified School District. And I'm here to echo the same concerns. I won't repeat everything Mr. Robin said, but obviously a lot of those same concerns with the traffic in our area, around our school, the sale of the alcohol, just the amount of traffic that'll bring towards the school without any exit there is just going to be detrimental to to the productivity of that area. So we're definitely concerned with what that'll do to our students. You know, we already have a crossing guard there, crossing towards AM, PM, and you can just imagine the amount of traffic that'll continue to grow. Will traffic going north on or south on Belford be allowed to turn left towards that? That'll back up the traffic on Belford. So, you know, a lot of the same concerns that, you know, obviously brings the biggest issue is obviously the safety of the students and the staff and everybody working around that site. So, thank you for your concern.
Thank you.
Sir,
Well, let's finish the public testimony.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, when students are showing up in the morning and leaving in the evening or afternoon, what are we looking at, an actual window of traffic for what, 15 to 30 minutes roughly, or is it tighter than that?
It's probably a little larger just because of the amount of, probably starting as early as 7:30. Our vice principal's there at 7:30. That's when we start letting students onto the campus.
And school actually starts at
At 8:05.
So
We have some
35,
stragglers that'll carry over, probably 8:15,
we'll say 40 minutes.
right? You know, and then obviously the let out is 3 o'clock. You know, another concern is that school is used, our multipurpose room is used for a number of different activities related to the school, not the school, and traffic. And if you've been around that, when any of those events happen on the weekends, you know, that parking will probably tend to carry over into another area, and it already carries over into that, on the Belford and 16th Street there as well.
Oh, yeah, no, I avoided that during those times of day. Yep. But I know to avoid it.
And is your guys' bus drop off of North Imperial Avenue as well in that little loop right there?
No.
Or where is
Actually
it?
It's
It's
it would be Belford,
off Belford?
yeah. So the buses come in off of Belford going south.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they come off going south onto Imperial Avenue into that little loop.
Correct.
Okay, so the street directly across the street from where this is where they drop off at, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be on the east side of the campus.
Thank you.
Mr. Rubalcaba, what is the highest level of traffic for your afternoon?
It extends out probably more in the afternoon because we have one let out, which is 3 o'clock. So then you have students that get on, parents are already waiting there to pick them up. And then that carries over into students that stay for tutoring, students that stay out a little after to work with the teacher, or we have afternoon activities with athletics that come and go as well, pretty much all year with the different seasons. So you probably have a larger window in the afternoon than you do in the morning.
Would you say till 5 or?
Not so much, probably not 5. I'd say maybe if tutoring starts at 3 o'clock, it's usually over by 4:15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I just wanted to address some of what's come up since we've been talking. First of all, I'm 100% pro-development, just so we're on the same page. Like, I think the city needs what they're trying to put here. I just want to make sure the picture's painted correctly because some things have been said that are not exactly on par. This site has not always been zone commercial. This site was acquired by the city when they had the Caltrans deal that just happened recently. Before that, it was government land that Caltrans used to store their asphalt and their debris and all that stuff on there. So to say that it's always been commercial and intended commercial is not necessarily fair in the fact that the school was built there, it wasn't commercial. Who knows if the school would have been built there if they would have known that, 7-Eleven and all that stuff's going to stack up in there. But who knows? The other thing I'm curious to is when I've seen this plan, it's triangular shaped, kind of going down into the area towards where Belford Road goes. And when you pull it up on the map, it shows the land that we're talking about goes all the way over there. So I don't necessarily understand the comment that land would have to be acquired to do that extension. It would be between the developers. The city controls Highway 86, and you might have to speak with the county a little bit, but it's something that's feasible. and something that should be done. It's no more different than us connecting 15th Street to the Brucherie, which is dealing with the county and dealing with the city of Imperial and us as the landowner. So if there's a will, there is a way to connect Belford Road to Highway 86. And what I'm hearing here is, I'm glad you brought up the fact that some people are saying widening and some people are not saying widening, because what I'm hearing is that they went out there with a civil engineer, which is the equivalent of me taking DJ Engineering down there and having them draw some stripes, some lines on there. That's very short of doing a professional traffic plan and taking into consideration these traffic times that you guys are bringing up in the morning, in the evening, all these things into consideration, and really putting with somebody that is paid to do it, you know, on a consultant basis, and these mitigated negative decks and these other things that haven't been done on this property. I think they would come up with a really different story, considering in the morning, like I said, I don't think there's any plans on here to widen Imperial Avenue. You can't get through Imperial Avenue. It's 100% blocked during school hours, 100%. You have to go into turn lanes and get creative to get around the cars that are in there. We're figuring it out, but I don't know what that's going to look like with a 7-Eleven, a Jack in the Box, and a mail place for the UPS or whatever it is. So just want to make that clear. It hasn't always been commercial. It's just been zoned commercial by the city in the most recent couple years. I do believe they can connect to, and it's not a thing where, yeah, the city controls 86, so it's not like where you have to work for 2 years to get the Caltrans approval anymore. I mean, you do probably have to talk with them, the DOT, but the city owns it. So I think you could connect that. That would solve a lot of problems. Outside of these small traffic things and taking into consideration the problems that you can't drive through the school at certain times and maybe widening Imperial Avenue and connecting, I would overall be supportive of the development.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Any other member of the audience? Seeing none, we'll move into commission discussion, which we kind of overlapped. My apologies.
How is this property reflected in the city's general plan?
It's now C2 Commercial General. And I want to point out a comment that was made earlier. APCD will review during the building permit process. Any projects that come into the city during the building permit phase are reviewed by APCD. And any development that has to do with underground storage tanks also gets processed by the Imperial County Planning and Building Department and their county health department as well. There are quite a few schools in the valley that are across the street from gas station. Part of our research was to gather that type of information. As of right now, the laws for schools being located next to gas stations, there's not really anything stated that says they cannot. I have examples if you'd like to hear, but there are gas stations across the street from schools in various cities here in the valley.
Now I'm just concerned with, you know, the Imperial County already has a lot of air quality issues, and so your students are most susceptible, especially when they're exercising outside. You know, they're already next to a highway, you're gonna have more traffic, you're gonna add a gas station, and this developer is not required to do anything like plant trees or anything to mitigate those air quality impacts.
They're going to have to provide a landscape planning. That's one of the conditions that you want to put in there.
Yeah, but you can put rocks, you know, you're not planting trees.
It doesn't want to
Can we make that adjustment to the line item
Correct.
in the conditionals of
Yes.
approval? Okay. Any other commissioners' discussion? So I do, on the conditions of approval, the right in, right out, number 7. So if the discussion that we had earlier, that would probably be the best place to put the second lane in there, because we are speaking on the same street, the 15th Street, to require the developer to do that.
That condition could read and modify to state that the developer shall cause 2 lanes from north of center line to occur the length of Highway 86 to Belford.
Could we require a traffic study?
You can, I mean, you can require anything you choose to require as the planning commission, as long as it's not a violation of their civil rights. So sure, you can require that. Whether or not the project would go forward, that's a question for the developer. Because the city has the planning department and the other departments did review the project. I mean, I'll suggest this to the commission. This is really an infill project, if you're familiar with that term. It's a fairly small project. We've got one we're bringing to you probably middle of next year that's on 67 acres, and that's a significantly different project than what we'd consider being an infill and the level of work that you do for that. But that, again, it is within your discretion to require a traffic analysis if that's what you choose to do.
So they would have to go to the county, the air pollution for the dust control, all prior to coming to a building permit?
Yes, that is
Okay.
a requirement for the gas.
Those are within the
That is,
conditions of
yes.
approval.
Okay. Any other discussion? by the
And then the
commission?
trees also, and so there's a condition of approval relative to the landscape. And you can suggest that, well, we have, there are some state mandates relative to landscape because of the overall water issues in California, that you still certainly can require within that, that even though it'll be a desert scape primarily, we're trying to get away from grass, obviously, that you can require that that landscape plan have trees involved. I wish I was an arborist and could tell you how many per square feet and all of those things, but certainly if that is the wish, I'm sure Othona will be doing appropriate research to make sure that that it, you know, a couple things. One, it provides shade. That's a good thing. Two is certainly, Commissioner, to your request, I mean, that is, you know, trees and greenery still clean the air for us. I mean, that's a realistic issue too. So how you balance that in a desert environment is always fun, but as we know, Imperial Valley has rights to more water than any other place in California. Now, we have to constantly remind people of that, but we have water rights here.
Thank you. So seeing no discussion, can I entertain a motion by anyone? Approval or denial motion?
Go ahead.
I motion to approve, but with the condition of the developer do a traffic study.
Would that be in the conditionals of approval, or how would you just,
Yes.
how would you like that? How does the developer feel about adding that to the conditional of approval? Would that be feasible for your project?
The condition is relatively open-ended, frankly. What are we exactly being asked to do? So we have to do a traffic study and submit it. Are we coming back before the planning commission? What is the intent of it?
Yeah, you would do a traffic study and then come back and present it to the planning commission and make changes accordingly to that traffic study.
We're not interested in submitting a traffic study and resubmitting. The time to do a traffic study and resubmit would be prohibitive in this project. And just to clarify points, the team that we have brought here, pretty sophisticated. They're not local. It takes a lot of effort, time, and energy. So it's something we feel comfortable with, confident with. The tenants do as well. It has been vetted. But at this point in time, we're looking for approval, not to come back to the planning commission.
Chris, what's your tentative timeline for this project? Like, when do you plan, if everything went well, to have everything up and running?
So the start of construction would be this summer, and that's going to be dependent on the permits. Right now, we're projecting to be under construction in June.
And completion by?
It's going to be phased, so the first portion will be the site. That will take approximately 12 to 16 weeks, and then the buildings will take another 14 weeks beyond that. So it's about a 26-week project, plus or minus 4 weeks.
If I can add to that for the commission, so, and I represent a number of cities throughout California, usually smaller, more rural communities. And so commissioners, councils, and the community often, and there's developers out here, they'll see an approval for, let's say, a Starbucks or a Vons or something, and they'll get excited that it's going to happen the next day, or they'll say, well, wait, why does it take then 6 months for you to begin construction? Well, one, those conditions of approval, those conditions all must be met before a building permit can be issued. Well, that includes going out to their architects and having plans put together. Oh, but before that, you have to go out and survey the site. And then you've got to go deal with the alphabet soup, so to speak, of agencies to get all of their buy-in. I have a super Walmart going on in another community, and it's literally taken us 24 months as the city to get through all of those conditions of approval. And that's why when he says it's going to be 6-7 months, it's not like they're sitting around waiting. I'm sure his folks would rather work when it's cool than when it's hot, but it is part of the process once they get through even the entitlement phase to get to the permitting phase.
Thank you. We do have a motion on the floor from Commissioner, sorry.
Just a quick comment with respect to placing a further condition on your approval. I believe under the city's ordinance, the developer could appeal to the city council if they're not happy with any of the conditions that were to be imposed.
Current ones or ones that are added.
Right.
Yeah, just because I don't want you to feel like you're the bad guy in this. I mean, if there was something else in there, a developer didn't like, they have the same appellate right. So I wouldn't,
The only other comment I would have is with respect to landscaping. The city does have, that was an ordinance that was mandated by state law with respect to requiring water efficient landscaping. What that means in connection with this project, I don't exactly know, but it potentially would impact. Now, obviously, when it comes time, if it were to come time for them to submit a landscape plan, the city's going to be looking at its own ordinance. So they might, if they were to submit something that called for all sorts of trees and the city's ordinance didn't allow for that because of the state mandated law, then obviously that would put a limit on what the city could approve by way of a landscape plan.
I think regardless, I don't think you would have area to plant enough trees to mitigate for the air quality impacts of increased traffic and a gas station there anyways.
but I think the message is loud and clear to your staff and consultant team, which is get the maximum amount of trees possible that help with that while still complying with state and local ordinances.
I just wanted to mitigate for the air quality impacts that his development is going to put on these students, and as a parent myself, I am concerned about it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Okay, no second, so
Then you would just ask for a substitute motion potentially if there was one.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Approved with the two changes that were previously
with the
discussed.
changes, yeah.
The trees and the 2 lanes.
With just the 2 lanes is fine.
the 2 lanes, okay. Do I have a second on that one?
I'll second.
Okay. Can we call for the vote?
Commissioner Burnworth,
No.
Vice Chair Deanne,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerness,
Yes.
Commissioner Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item D2, public hearing, discuss an action of variance 1906. I would like to open,
If
sorry.
you can hold it a little
Oh,
bit,
sorry.
just so I think, if they want to leave that.
Yeah.
And, no, sorry.
Thank you.
okay. We're going to open the public hearing, staff report.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. The item before you is variance 1906, deviation from ordained parking requirements for the addition of a 9,000 square foot gymnasium. The applicant is Valley Christian Church. The project location is 431 West Wall Road here in Imperial. The item is categorically exempt from CEQA. Recommendation to the Planning Commission is to review the variance request. A little background. The applicant is requesting a variance permit to allow for the deviation from the City of Imperial's parking requirements, Section 24.13.130 of the zoning code regarding off-street parking requirements in regards to uses of churches and places of assembly to provide for one parking space for every 45 square feet of the floor area. Valley Christian Church is proposing to add a new 9,000 square foot gymnasium on the same parcel as the existing church. The addition of the new building gymnasium triggers parking requirements. Currently, there are 65 existing parking spaces being provided by the church use. The applicant would like to not have to provide any further parking and utilize the already existing parking provided by the church use. The applicant states on the planning application that both buildings will not be utilized at the same time, allowing for the parking to be used by either building separately. The parking calculations. The existing church is 5,000 square feet, so it states on the site plan provided. The parking ordinance for the City of Imperial calls there be either one space for every 3 fixed seats or one space every 45 square feet where there are no fixed seats in a church or place of assembly. For the existing church, based on the square footage calculation, there should be 111 parking spaces. There are only 65 existing parking spaces currently provided for the existing church building. For the proposed new construction of a 9,000 square foot gymnasium building addition, there should be 200 additional parking spaces provided per the city ordinance based on the calculation of one parking space per every 45 square feet that our ordinance calls for. The applicant has provided the required findings that are within your staff report packet. If you look at page 4 and 5, there are 2 site plans being proposed by the applicant. One that shows parking of 45 spaces on site of phase 1 of phase 2, and that then they also utilize the street as parking of up to 75 additional parkings. And they also have provided a site plan option with no additional parking. The applicant would like to the variance to not provide parking, but if so, the option they showed with the parking is what is feasible for the project. We also have the representative, if you have any questions for the applicant.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is John Jones, and I'm the minister of Valley Christian Church. We're located at 431 West Wall Road in Imperial. Approximately 12 years ago, we had the vision to build a church building there, and the City of Imperial was very gracious to work with us, and we have been there for the existing 11 years. During those past 11 years, we feel like we've been an asset to the community. The church has opened itself to the soccer league, the youth soccer league coaches that have met there. We have opened it up for various things. We even had it for polling for the last election. Took place at our facility. We've had Thanksgiving meal available to those in the community, as well as other things that we have done. One of our members has a passion for the youth, not only of our church, but also for the community. And so they have graciously pledged a large amount to the building of a multi-purpose facility. And their desire is that it will have a basketball and volleyball court, as well as a kitchen area, bathrooms, and a small entry area to go into the gymnasium. And so we are moving in that direction. We hope to be able to do that, and we hope that this building would be a place in which we would have fellowships and activities for our own congregation, as well as open it up a few days a week in the evening or afternoon for after-school programs and tutoring. We have some people in our church that are interested in doing that and reaching out to our community. And so that is our goal in doing that.
And even with the generous donation that we have received, the building of this facility is pushing us beyond our current resources and possibly beyond what we consider wise stewardship to reach at this time. And one of the things that's possibly putting us past our project, or this project past our reach, is the cost of additional parking. And I've been told that it can run us somewhere around $200,000. We currently average 150 in attendance, and we have the 65 parking spaces. I would like to mention that even though it's a 5,000 square foot building that we existingly have, only 3,000 of that is for the sanctuary area. The other is nursery and bathrooms and utility rooms and storage rooms. So the actual square footage that we have where people meet is, again, 3,000 square feet. Again, our current attendance is around 150, and we don't see the multi-purpose building as something that will place additional burden on the parking, since the facility will not be being used at the same time, and put an additional requirement on that. I'm aware that the initial variance request was for reduced parking, but our request now would be that you would allow us to build a building with no additional parking at this time. I have with me tonight Natalie Erickson, representing Castillo Construction, as well as Tim and Caleb Gaddis, representing TWG Construction, who are working with us on this project. And so we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? I have a quick question. For the current parking spaces right now during your busy time from 10 to 2, is that still, is that, I'm trying to think of the right word.
Full?
Full, yes. With 115 people.
You know what,
on
I
there,
would like
so
to tell you that they were full every Sunday. I can't tell you that because our attendance varies.
Okay.
Summertime especially here in the valley, that people that can get out of the valley, get out of the valley. There are times in which it is full and people use off-street parking. I will tell you that, yes.
Okay.
Do you ever have so many parishioners there for, Christmas, Easter, big events, where they would actually utilize the dirt area, because it's not a parking lot, but it's available space?
There have been some times we had a funeral recently in which we had just an overflow of people coming, and so in that particular instance, we did have parking that was done out in that dirt lot, but on a regular basis, it's not needed or not necessary.
Right, but a substantial portion of that dirt lot's still going to be there even after the building was built.
Correct.
Okay.
I will also say that our hope is in the future that we will have a sanctuary in that location, and then we are trying to acquire other property connected to our church or adjacent to across the street from it. Right now, we are in the process of trying to get that property that we could use as parking for future if we ever do go that direction.
Thank you. Any other member of the audience that would like to say anything on this project?
I have a question. On the site plan with proposed additional parking, is this site plan showing what the zoning requires of the additional 200 spaces, or is this just what the church could financially be able to obtain at this point?
Well, it was done in hoping with the off-street variance and whatever, trying to accommodate the requirement that they were doing. Even that was possibly going to put this project out of our reach at this time and put a halt to the project, unfortunately.
So if it's not approved if it is required that there's additional parking, then the project would come to a halt?
But greatly possibly, yes, unless some great donor comes up and decides to bless us again, yes.
Any other member of the audience like to come up and speak? Seeing none, commission discussion on this project? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Commission discussion?
I think the church additional funding for a parking lot could be better used, put into the community in other ways other than additional parking spots, personally.
And we have a lot of variants like this before where we reduce the parking of existing
There's a
buildings.
few. There's
Okay.
quite a few.
To my understanding, Minister, wherever you're at, is you're not going to be renting this out for parties or quinceañeras or things like that?
No. No.
Right. It's purely parishioner use, maybe host a couple special events a year, other than that.
That's correct.
That's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right.
And it definitely won't be during your Sunday sermon.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. Entertain a motion, Commissioners?
I'll move to grant the variance passes written. What would we know?
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Call for the vote.
Commissioner Burnworth,
Yes.
Vice Chair Deanne,
Yes.
Commissioner Hammerman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harkey.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. D3, public hearing discussion action variance 1905.
I think we have a comment for.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
that means you don't have to make the parking.
Okay, yeah, I just, no parking, no extra parking required. Okay,
Yes.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I know that's what you thought. We did something good, we got a car.
He's gonna ask us to see you on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So nice
I'm sure
to see
I
all
can
that
use it.
support.
We're not gonna be so happy with this one.
Okay, so we'll be moving on. D3, public hearing discussion action variance 1905. Open the public hearing. Staff report.
Commissioners, members of the public, staff, the item before you is variance 1905, deviation from ordained side and rear yard setbacks for Mayfield Unit 3C. The applicant is Michael Persglub. The zoning is a planned unit development for residential single-family uses. Background, the applicant is requesting a variance permit to allow for the deviation from the City of Imperial's property development standards, section 24.03.120 of the zoning code regarding setback requirements for the side and rear yards of the property from the ordained 5 feet to 0 feet to allow the development of single-story homes. The Mayfield Subdivision Unit 3C planned unit development parcels are, because it's a planned unit development, the parcels are not, they're different sizes. So certain floor plans don't fit on the sizes, and the applicant rather process a variance in order to allow their proposed floor plans for the parcels. Without the variance, the developer will not be able to move forward with the project as it will not be feasible for the development. The California Building Code allows single-family residential to be constructed at less than 5 feet from the property line, as long as exterior walls have a 1-hour fire resistance as specified on the California Building Code. The applicant provided the required findings, which you have in your staff report. If you go to page 4 of your staff report, the variance is only for the internal parcels. So what's in between Meadowbrook Drive and Spring Street. We also have a site plan map that has the colored parcels. If you'd like to see it, I can enroll it, show it to you real quick. So it's on the purple and yellow parcels. Of the interior.
Thank you.
Purple and yellow?
Yep. We also have the applicant present here if you have any questions.
We'll open public testimony.
Good evening, Marty Coyne. I'm the owner of Morningside Ventures. The application was made on our behalf by Mr. Michael Prushklov, who's our consultant and general contractor. He's with us in the audience today. I think in your packet you probably got a very small version of these house plans. I do have some larger versions in color and have plenty enough to pass out to you guys if you'd like to take a little closer look. Would you like to only take a second?
Actually, I have a set.
Pardon?
We do have some colored copies in the
Are
back.
you big enough? I mean, I got some larger ones there, so it's up to you. But we do have them, be happy to pass them out to you. And of course, we have them on the board here. So to make your job a little bit easier, I think, is this is what we've been calling, we've done more than one here in the city of Imperial and many more in the county, a rescue project or a rescue subdivision. These are one of these subdivisions that went broke in 2007. Sat around for 10 or 12 years when we took possession of it and were kind of coerced into doing something with it. We had a pretty decent track record of turning subdivisions around. We did the Morningside subdivision over there on, was it Ralph Road or whatever the road is over there, but it was basically a city dump. It was had homeless living there. I think we hauled about 100 tons of trash and debris out of there when we first took it over. This is kind of the final phase. So we have, we turned around phase 1, which was 64 lots. Phase 2, we just finished the other day. The city's going to accept that. We took it from just raw land and turned it into finished lots. We have a builder in there building affordable homes. In this particular one, and the reason I say this has been established for a long time, we just didn't wake up yesterday and say we want to do small lots. This is probably kind of an off-take of probably what occurred in 2005 and 2006. As homes were getting expensive, the existing developer, which was Pacific Century Homes that went broke, thought we need to come up with something affordable. So if you roll back the clock 10 or 15 years, what he did, and he was actually the builder of them, if any of you recall the cottages, the attached, well, this is our version in 2019 that we've kind of assumed since then, but we didn't think attached with common walls and common roofs were the way to go. So what we try to do to activate these is come up with some home plans and designs where the homes are not attached and you're not hearing your neighbors through walls and you're not having to deal with issues of sharing roofs when they leak. So what really is before us, I had a consultant work with me for a number of years and he's now moved on. When a PUD is the same as a specific plan, I know some of you guys are new in the business, that's when almost a developer and applicant can kind of set their own standards. They don't have to live by the current zoning of the cities, and that's what happened in this project. So realistically, this gentleman who worked for me, he was an old timer, he worked for the Irvine Company, and he told me when we started looking at zero lot lines and that kind of stuff, he says, half of Temecula was built that way. So when I originally came to with my specific plan, I was the original guy that designed Savannah Ranch, Desert Mirage as well, besides other projects. We did some 4,500 square foot lots and some 45-foot wide lots. These were done by another developer. These were at 39 feet. So typically you got a 5-foot setback on each side, which leaves you a pretty narrow 29-foot wide house. The other option, of course, is 2-story, but in our training and looking right now, 2 stories are less popular, single stories are more popular for a lot of reasons. The goal is of going small lots, less money to develop, affordable houses. The city has an obligation to the state. It's called the State of California Housing Element to have affordable housing. We think this kind of contributes to that. But at the end of the day, the single story we feel works. Senior people don't want 2 stories. Young people with young kids don't want 2 stories, kids falling downstairs. So we're really targeted, affordable market, being able to hit all aspects of the demographics that we're looking for. What we designed is 3 different plans. One is a 2-story, and that 2-story, or I'm not a 2-story, I'm sorry, 2-bedroom, and we have a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom plan. The reason we're here today is a deal with setbacks. So originally we came looking for a 0-yard setback, which would mean a house would sit on a property line, but everyone would sit on the same property line. There'd be a 5-foot offset between the houses. As we worked around with our architect the other day, we were able to say, okay, well, the difference between a 5-foot setback from a house and sitting on a 0 lot line, and then you'd have to have a maintenance easement so that neighbor can go into the property of his neighbors in case he had to paint his house or fix his eaves or any of those things. We worked a little bit harder over the last few days, and we've been able to come with a 3-foot setback on each side. We don't need a maintenance easement with their neighbors, and that really creates a 6-foot setback from each property or from each house. And that's where we're here today. And in order for these 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms to work, the other thing that we've already clarified, and it's really on the PUD, is property driveways will be set back at 15 feet. And in one plan, we need to have the house or one of the bedrooms set back at 10 feet from the front property line. These are standards that have already been approved by cities, or by the city, City of Imperial, or other subdivisions. Cambria, Victoria Estates over there has the same type of setbacks on some of their affordable product that they're doing 2 stories. So we're really only here to ask for a couple of things. Approve the 0 lot line or the 3-foot setback variance compared to the normal 5, which is still created, as you can see. We got both of these drawn up just so you can show. This set of renderings here shows a 3-foot setback, property lines in the middle, you got 6 feet separating the houses. With a 0 lot line and a 5-foot offset, that's what this plan here is, and if you look really, really close, you can't even really tell the difference. It's really, you're only talking about a foot. But what we will be able to do is come in, sell a home affordable. You know, in a perfect world, we haven't got all of our bids yet, that 2-bedroom we can see, my goal is offer $199,000 brand new home. And a 3-bedroom in the very low 2s and a 4-bedroom in the mid 2s. I think there's a lot of people that, we already know what the value is. I mean, it's really a $250,000 market or less, 80 or 90% of people in the valley. So that's really what our goal is. So we're not doing a new subdivision map. We're not doing new conditions. I will tell you that this project, when I inherited the project, I believe I came before the commission in May of 2019 this year. I don't think any of you guys are on the board. And we also brought it back to the city council because we did have some conditions. We needed some corrections on some conditions, some amendments, and some support to make some changes. We have full planning commission support. We have full city council support. What I wasn't smart enough to do and didn't have the vision way back in May when I was purchasing the property, because it was part of my due diligence to make sure I get it approved, was knowing the floor plans we were going to put on there. I could have took the 3-foot setback to the commission in May, but wasn't that far ahead in the planning of the architect. So we're here to answer any questions for you. I can learn, again, if you have any other questions on the project, it's gone deep. It's been around for a long time. One thing the city's always interested in, hopefully you should be too, is the financial healthiness of the city. When this project is built out, it'll bring in approximately $2.8 million in impact fees, building permit fees to the city, and everything else that goes along with it, sewer capacity fees, water capacity fees, etc. And then when it's also built out, it'll take the county tax roll, which is probably $100,000 on the whole 40 acres over there, because it was just farm ground at one point in time, and put it on the county tax roll at approximately $56 million. And based on how it gets split going to school districts and cities and where all our tax dollars go, that'll bring approximately $175,000 to $200,000 a year into the city of new, fresh money. Besides that, we try to buy local, we try to build local, we participate with the city on other projects. And so I'm here to answer any questions for you, and hoping you'll improve it so we can move on and go to work and build.
Any questions for the applicant?
I do. So the variance is just for the inner part of the parcels in the middle that are going to be not the outer line ones that were shown in the picture.
So again, I inherited this project in a way it kind of
Is the outer line part going to be a different product, or is it going to be?
It's actually different size lots. They're 5,000 square foot lots, 50 foot wide. And
Okay.
that kind of matches what the other part is. And again, I think the vision of the original developer, mind you, all these years ago, is to do what he did with the cottages, create something smaller, less money to make it affordable.
But it's all going to be the same product. It's just going to be a house placed on a bigger lot. Or
There will be different homes built on these,
Yes.
we can build a wider product. The
Okay.
narrow houses are not the most popular thing in the
Mhm.
world, but we can't, in this day and age, the architects are pretty good, and they can put a lot of lipstick on a narrow floor plan and make it look good, so. But yeah, all of these in green are 5,000 square foot lots that are 50 by 100. All the interior ones here are 39 foot wide by about 88 or 90 foot deep. And I think that includes these here as well.
Well, is it the Cambria? Do they have those same size lots as well?
That is correct. I think these are a little bit smaller, but it's pretty much.
And how about the setbacks in
It is a
Cambria?
different, it is a PUD, it's a planning and development. The setbacks are
relaxed.
Okay.
Yes.
And with the 3-foot setback, would you still need the 1 hour fire resistance included
That
in
is
that?
correct,
So
yes,
that's
still
not
need-
included in the conditions of
No,
approval?
that's part of the building.
Okay, so that's already gonna be taken care
That
of?
is
Okay.
correct.
And it'll be a true 6 feet literally between the buildings, they'll just, it's not 3 feet to the next building.
On the 39 wide parcels, right?
I'm sorry?
On the 39-foot wide parcels?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, well, that's, where are you getting the other foot? You got a 34-foot house on a 39-foot lot, that's 5 feet.
Well, I think
Are you making
what-
the house narrower?
Yeah, I think what we did is we took another, we set the 0 lot line, property line, but the original drawing showed it 6 foot off, just to be safe. And then when we thought about it, the architect and gentleman I'm working with, he goes, well, if we narrow the house down another 8 inches, that'll get us that 6 feet, that we need 3 feet and 3 feet on both sides.
So
So
the
if you're
house-
looking at something,
So they're not gonna be 34 feet anymore?
they're gonna be 33.6 or 33.8.
Okay, but I mean, you had to get it somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
So the house paid the price for it.
right.
And we really believe the 3-foot setback compared to the 0 lot line, that way there's no neighbor issues or anything.
When I first saw this, I thought it was going to be like a cottage situation, which
Well-
when it first came out, it was very popular. I remember that.
Those were in the same price range at the top of the market back then, and there's demand. As you know, affordability is really important. And I think the city gets heat from the state to have affordable housing, so we think it's a good fit all around. Let me tell you, the way I look at it, it's one step better than a condominium. And if you recall back in the day, the other thing they used to call was like the townhomes, right?
Yeah.
And so this is another step better than that, and it's better than the cottages where you have your neighbors listening to where, your bedroom that's close, to the attached wall. So we think it's the best way to go.
Mr. Coyne, I just want to give you a compliment. I really do think that the city of Imperial needs more affordable housing. I recently just bought a home a few months ago, and I will tell you that it's very hard to find affordable homes within the city of Imperial. So, thank you. I think our city really needs it.
And we, as you know, I'm in the property management. We build homes for lease as well, and we know what that hot amount of that dollar amount is that most people can afford, and so we've done. I own a bunch of the cottages, bought those from the banks back in the last crash of the market, but we try to keep it in an affordable range. And then when we felt we were kind of deviating out of that, I thought there was a need. So as you may know, you may not know, then we decided to build some multifamily, and we own the multifamily at Threshold Road and the Brucery. And I didn't come in and build the big fancy stuff like Town Center or Miraflores. What I call this is mid-market. So we're not low income Section 8, but we give a nice, clean new home for somebody to live in at a reasonable price without all the bells and whistles, and it seems to be working. We're full all the time. We keep it very, very nice. I think hopefully it's a good role model for the city, and we'd like to do more. We're working on phase 2 right now, as a matter of fact. So we've got a great working relationship with staff. We appreciate that very much, and we'd like to continue working with the city of Imperial. We've got a great relationship for years, and we've made a tremendous investment in this city, and we'd like to continue to grow with you guys. So.
Thank you.
And there's 3 things, again, I want to point out. We need that 10-foot livable setback, we need the 15 garage setback, and then we need the 0 lot line / 3-foot setback, and that would cover our needs to whatever plans we decide to do.
How many total lots is this impacting this variance?
I'll tell you real quick, 111.
111?
Yes.
So the numbers that you gave, the financials, are based on the 111 lots or on the...
No, 145, because this is what the map is Unit 3C. I own them all, and so those numbers will occur and will happen. The smaller lots, that 2.8 I gave you, the 56 million, is based on an average cost of a home of 225.
Okay.
Some less, some a little bit more, depending if it's 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom, etc.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
they're real numbers. I promise you that.
I believe you.
I think this is great. I think it gives a lot of people opportunities for USDA loans that can be approved in Imperial. So,
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this?
I have one more question, just more curiosity than anything else. I was going through it, I didn't see anything on actual square footage. I had to kind of do my own calculations, but that included the garage. So if you could enlighten me in what the rough livable square footage, not including the garage?
I'd be more than happy to, and I probably, like I said,
I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. You
They're
can just-
actually all in your packet.
Well, I said I went through it, I didn't see the actual square footage.
I believe.
But there was a lot to read, and I may have missed that.
Should keep this in, keep it around, or share it with anybody, but if you look at the bottom, 1,110 square feet, 380 square foot, two-bedroom, starting time.
My computer didn't print that.
No problem, that's why I brought these for you, just in case.
So you said 1,100 square feet?
Yes, sir. Our plan two is 1,202 square feet, 382 square foot garage, three-bedroom, two-bath. And you show, to make it look good, we have different elevations, as you can
That's
see.
nice.
too.
Right.
I like that.
And then our four-bedroom is 1,347 square feet, 381 square foot garage, four-bedroom, two-bath.
And you said all one story.
Yeah, that's kind of the trend right now. And then you
Yes.
start thinking seniors, and you start thinking people with babies.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I remember when
Oh, no,
Mayfield first came up, it was, everybody was interested because it was a larger one-story plan. Then I don't know, it just kind of fell
That
through.
goes hot and cold, you know. The young people, till they move in, and think 2 stories is the way to go, but sooner or later,
They get tired.
you start arguing with your wife, who's gonna go upstairs or whatever, they're gonna get the stuff, so.
I would say I have a 2-year-old and it took him a whole 30 minutes to fall down the stairs of my 2-story house, so.
So I just want to clarify, today we are just approving the setback of the 0 to 3 feet. Is that correct? I know I heard some additional, the
There's
garage.
a couple options, I mean, you can,
Okay.
I mean, you can approve a 0 lot setback, as long as they're offset or the 3 feet setback.
Okay.
All of them.
Oh, okay. That's what-
3 feet would be better, so.
Okay, that's what I was
zero.
just-
And then the other thing, just to kind of give you an idea, if you look at the plan too, you can see where the two, in order to make it work well, the bedroom protrudes out in front of the garage, and that gets the 10-foot setback instead of the standard 15. That way we can build that plan and make it work, so hopefully you guys are good with that. So 10-foot livable setback, 15 garage setback, and we'll be ready to go.
So we have more than one option then? Or, and what do you need? Exactly, which one do you need? I
All
guess.
the above I just asked.
So you said 3 feet setback, a 10-foot setback from the
The
sidewalk to
application
the
for
home.
0, and if these plans are successful, which we're planning on, I'd like you to approve the 0 setback, and of course, the 3 is something better, so anything above 0 would fall under. That's all.
The 3.
Pardon?
You have the 0, I mean, you have the.
The 3, it gives me the variance to finish the 3, and right now, we're focused on 3 unless something changes.
Okay.
And then the 10 and the 15 for the setback from the street.
So would we modify the condition to say 3 or just leave it at 0 and?
If you leave it at 0, that gives him the ability to do 3, 2, 1, 0. It's more flexible. It's up to the
It would be
commission.
helpful in case there's a trend that changes, or somebody wants some 2-story or something. You know,
And
we don't
with
build
the
on
zero
them.
amendment, also the motion should take in consideration that the housing needs to be offset. If you have a 0, the next housing needs to be 5 feet away from it.
Oh, okay.
So let me step way out of what my normal role is. I own a home where my property line is my wall. And you talk about maintenance easements. So every time we gotta go paint the house, have landscaping, whatever it happens to be, we all play this game of having to show insurance documents and everything else. So if you go to a true 0 lot line, I will tell you, Marty's absolutely right. It is a complete nightmare to maintain that wall, if that makes sense. Because in order for me to go paint that wall, I have to actually go to my neighbor's yard to do it. And while I have a maintenance, so I'm going to tell you as a homeowner who has one of those, avoid that at all costs if you can.
And that's
because
where we're
it doesn't
at.
help anybody.
We think we have great floor plans, and doing that 3 foot, we think everybody's gonna be happy. We only have, and honestly, I'm gonna keep 22 to build for lease, for people that can't afford to buy. So really, there's only 89 to sell, and we think the 3 foot setback in these plans are gonna work. So that would just be a fallback if absolutely necessary, but our plans are not to do it.
The ones that you plan to lease, would you do it?
No.
Okay.
We're gonna use the same identical plans. You're looking at drawing simple street plans like that all in by the time we do structural and Title 24 and paying the architect. That's about a $60,000 bill, so we don't, you just go out and change the design next week kind of thing.
And homes are built now, the building permits require fire suppression
Yes.
within all the
All
homes now,
included, all
okay.
right,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the zero setback, so I mean.
Well, either are we. It's only.
Well, I don't even like it as an option, because it's just rubs me wrong. I mean, the
Just
idea-
set it at 3 feet and
Yeah,
have an actual
I mean,
number to hit.
If we can not do zero and still give you room to wiggle, I would be much more comfortable with approval on that.
If we do 1 foot, we still have to have that extra
You're gonna have,
cushion.
in this case, you're gonna have a 3-foot setback on each side.
Okay, so that's what we're,
Yes.
okay.
Unless he
We'd like-
changes his mind and decides to go to zero, which we would give him the option to do.
Correct.
Only if you can remove.
But like I
Yeah.
said, you're saying you don't like it, but at the end of the day, can you tell the difference right here? Every house has to be set off like 5 feet all the way down the street, so, and again, you got cottages that the city's approved years ago, but we can
Well, I
try
wasn't-
without it, but I would, in a multi-million-dollar investment, it's a great fallback option if we ever needed it. Like I said, I didn't create it, I'm just trying to finish it for the city, the subdivision.
And how many phases this would be? This is one phase, or how many phases are found for the
Here's what
future?
the intent is, well, I don't know now, but I'm gonna do all my 22 at one time.
That's what I figured,
And,
yeah.
the other good thing that you guys need to know and staff needs to know is I'm gonna do a joint venture with Victoria Park, who did the single stories over there. They're out of homes. They've sold out, and we're planning on leaving the city of Imperial and going to another city to do business. I know Jim Leslie, I'm friends with him, and I said, well, come build over here to get another single-story project going. He's got Cambry. So he's actually going to build out the balance of the 89 lots. And so you retain a developer in the city of Imperial. I'm building for lease. He's a reputable guy. We worked together to get these plans to eliminate that zero lot line. So I think everybody's got the best of all worlds at this point.
I do think if we require them to offset, it's gonna be, it would be fine like that.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Have the 3 foot set.
If we leave it at zero and just, I mean, the houses are gonna be offset from each other, they're not gonna lie flat, they're gonna be offset, so it would still create that, even that separation.
Well, until you shrunk the houses, it would have been
I can be in front of
it
you.
would have been offset in 5 feet, right?
You know, I can be in front of you with cottages tonight, chances are. So
I think the
really
recommended
split hairs.
option here will be a
Three
3-foot
foot,
setback
okay.
on each side.
Okay. So anyone from the public that like to speak, or any commissioner discussion? Or, sorry, close a public hearing, commission discussion on this? Hearing none, do I entertain a motion?
Just trying to figure out how to make one.
So does he want the zero?
He wants a 3.
He wants a zero.
Staff's 3.
He wants 3.
He wants-
built on zero lot.
Do you want 0 or 3?
I would like that in as just as a safety net.
At this point, staff recommendation will be 3 feet on each side.
So staff recommendation is different than what he was
Correct.
requesting.
Yes.
Any
Does that make
motion?
it a non-starter if it's 3 feet?
I think he showed us the models that would reduce it, or
I
increase it
think
to
we're
3
good at
feet and
3
reduce
feet.
the
Like I
lot.
said, it would just be a safety net, and I would hate to have to come back. Up until about 2 weeks ago, this was a zero lot line project, and plans that we could only make work and fit was a zero lot line. And your planning director said, one, he would support it, and two, he wanted me to propose it in both ways today, because that's what the variance application said. But I also have to go back and answer to Mr. Leslie at Victoria Park. We believe these are gonna work. Like I said, it's a safety net only. And I don't see why staff wouldn't approve it, because they've approved cottages before when we got common walls. Bethune, you've approved cottages before.
Right.
So I have to ask you, what's the big deal?
One of the things that we're looking at right now is that the maintenance issue that they have. And it's up to the commissioners to make the motion. I mean, the recommendation that based on the analysis that it was provided, it was.
But your plan anyways is to do 3 foot, so if we come back and say 3 foot, then we're not really, I mean,
Other than if something was to change or whatever the case may be, is I'd have to bring it back as
Mhm.
an additional request.
but I think we would just like to have that control if something does change, that we do have the ability to make a decision at that time if it's something.
If you leave it up 0 feet setback, he's got the ability to do it 1, 2, or 3.
Without having to come
Without
back.
having to come back, that is correct.
And then just add the verbiage in, if that is, then a maintenance agreement would have to be, come along with it, and then we're done. That's he's only concerned about.
The maintenance agreement from the homeowners,
Yes, it would have to be recorded and go with the property, but
would that cause a lot of issues with the city having those, maintaining
no,
those?
city has nothing to do with it.
Or, I mean,
We have some
no,
property,
so it's just property,
Property
ability
property
to do
owner.
that? So any motion on this item?
Can staff deal with it only as a safety net fallback? As long as there's a maintenance agreement that would come with it?
I'm sorry.
Can staff deal with a 0 lot line if the maintenance, if?
We can deal with wherever the commission is approved. That's, we don't have a problem with the setback.
Thank you.
But, staff recommendation, like we said, is a 3-foot setback would be most appropriate.
The conditions of approval could always be tailored to what you'd like to approve. For example, if you decide to approve a setback between 0 feet and 3 feet, you could conditionally approve it and add language that says contingent upon planning commission review. So at the time of building permit, when he submits his plans, we bring it to you as a discussion item where he doesn't have to pay another fee because it's part of the conditions of approval, and it gives you the ability to see the final product of what he's proposing. So it's...
Let me say at the time, approve it with 3 feet. And it's kind of crazy, again, because there's duplexes that the city's approved all the time, and they're successful in every city, but you go ahead and approve it at 3 feet, and we'll go from there. It's not right. You already have attached housing. We're not talking about attached housing. And you need affordable, but yeah, I'm not going to split hairs over it. It's ridiculous because you've already got them in your city now. So.
Any motion from the commission?
Move to approve with 3-foot setback.
Do I have a second? Lack of a second, do I have a substitute motion?
I'll move to approve variance 19-05 with the 0 to 3 foot setback as Lisa described, where he would, the applicant would have to come back at time of building permit if anything was to change from what is proposed now, or I'm not sure if I'm wording that correctly.
If it's less than 3 feet, how's that?
If it's less than 3 feet.
I'll second that motion.
I do have a comment on that. We are just discussing that. We cannot change anything regarding the 3 feet. We're just allowing it. I want to know what our future role will be.
So your future role, it would give him the ability to come back without having to do a variance application request, a public hearing. It would be handled, I can't say administratively, but by the commission ultimately, without having to do a public hearing and so forth.
The formalities.
And you would just say, okay, it's offset because these plans are to be offset, and you would just review and make sure that it's what you envision and what has been stated.
It would just be another discussion.
Yeah.
Does
But
that
we can't
work for
change
you?
any design,
Yeah,
so-
I think, you know.
I mean, it's not going to have cost, it's not going to have time, it's
Yeah, I
it's
would
going
come
to...
back and say, everybody hates these plans, I gotta go 0 lot line, and I think what they wanna say, here's a maintenance agreement between the property owners, would they approve that, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Hopefully we don't have to go there. But I still, like I said, I could be here doing duplexes and probably get approved tonight, so. But anyway.
I know, but you came and you told us about this 3 foot thing, so it's like you
Yeah,
held
yeah.
candy right here, and then you're like, but I don't want to do it, you
Should've
know?
stuck with my original,
Yeah.
because anything less than 0 would have been approved. Let's do that, guys, thank you.
Okay, as long as you're okay with it. I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second to include with the variance of 0 to 3 with the condition of it coming back to us.
If it only
If
comes
it-
back to you if it's less than.
If it's less than 3.
And the 15-foot garage and the 10-foot.
Yes.
So
So we were having-
The motion.
I move to approve variance number 19-05 with the condition of a 3-foot side setback and with 10-foot,
Living room setback.
what do you say? the garage setback?
No, 15 garage
15
and
garage.
10 living, which was.
Having 10 living setback with the condition that if the side setback was to be any lesser than 3 foot, that the item would come back for discussion to the planning commission. And because it's part of the conditions, it would not need to be applied for again or anything.
I do want to clarify, so if he's out of the 3 foot and we set the 3 foot, what happens then?
He would need to bring it back.
He comes back
No,
for discussion.
but I mean,
He comes back for discussion and we can approve or deny.
you would
it.
have to have a different, okay. I just want to make sure. Okay.
That would happen at the building permit process.
And that's fine, like I said, I think that their concern is would be what the maintenance agreement would be between if we went that way, so that's fine.
Yes.
Just to be clear, if this motion passes, and then if the developer determines that they want something less than 3 feet, what I heard you say was it would come back to the planning commission for discussion.
So we
And
can't.
I'm not sure, discussion in the pure sense means, okay, is there going to be a potential action?
Can it come back
Is
for
there going to
action?
be potential, you're not going to require them to know, you're not going to require them to go through the variance again, I gather is your intent, right? There's going to be, I guess I'm not real clear what it is, what would happen before this body?
I'm going to go with what Lisa initially said was a potential option, which was bringing it back at the building permit phase if it was to go lesser than 3 feet. Would we need to do an action at that time? Would it need to go back to city council? Or?
No, the purpose for that would be for your review, and you could comment and say, oh, okay, yes, the 1 foot, you have your easement between neighbors, or we're okay with it, just for you to see the plans.
The recommendation would be that if it's once less than that, he will have to come back and it will have to be public noticed.
For a variance?
For variance, yes. He
So
wants
he's-
to deviate from that motion.
So he's gonna have to pay a
If
variance
he wants
fee
to
again?
deviate, yes.
So we might as well just set it as a
Just set
3
it
foot.
as, yes.
Can I speak from your economic development standpoint? A developer like Mr. Coyne, who's been any developer, the one thing he wants to walk out of this room with tonight is certainty. Developers need certainty because that's how he does things. So if he walks out this room tonight and has to come back potentially, he's now going to have to go have all those plans made, designed, which is going to cost him tens of thousands of dollars to come back and still get a yes or no at that point. It probably is to his benefit to walk out of the room tonight. So if the intent is 6 months from now that you would probably be saying yes to the zero, then provide that flexibility now, only because you really don't want a developer spending tens of thousands of dollars to come back and still not know where they're really at. And I would say that about any development that walks into this room, is they're looking for certainty of whatever the rules are that you're comfortable with, because that's within your purview.
On the zero lot line, if you approved it that way, just say a building permit provide documentation satisfactory to the department, to planning or building, which would mean that maintenance agreement or anything else that go along with it, maybe something like that, a phone? Are that acceptable to you? Because I know that's what you're concerned
We'll
about.
have to, we'll have to run it by the city attorney, but that's something will be acceptable, if acceptable by the planning commissioners. So like Mike Bracken
If it's not
said, I mean,
acceptable, then they'll deny it.
if you allowing them to do a 0 feet setback, it will give you a lot of flexibility right now. Then you doesn't have to come back to the planning commission again, and we will review that from 5 to 4, 3 to 0 without coming back to the planning commission.
And the zero lot line will give us 6 feet from house to house?
It will give you at least 5 feet.
5 feet from house to house?
From house to house.
3 foot setback,
Yes.
you get 6.
So it's a foot loss.
But then you have that maintenance agreement, because when you have to do maintenance on your home, you're in someone else's property now.
Okay.
Yard, basically.
If it's built on the lot line, and I live this, then that's the case. And I'm only suggesting that, if you do it right, meaning Dennis would review the documents for the maintenance agreements and whatnot. I will still tell you, if you end up with two neighbors, Marty, that don't like each other, there's a problem.
Let me ask you this, we want to finish this up, and I appreciate you guys' time. How many issues and complaints and hassles have you had with roofs conjoined and walls conjoined at the cottages where they came back to the city and give you grief?
I don't recall having any.
Thank you very much. Yes, speaks for itself.
Are the cottages R1?
They're attached.
They're attached.
Attached,
Yes.
okay. So we had a motion on it. Did we get the clarification for the applicant if that's approved? Do you want to, I know you had some clarification, Mr. Morita. Like what would our,
It was zero setback but, and that's where I
Okay.
was confused. And so I
Okay.
think what
I'm going to amend my motion. I'm sorry. I move to approve variance number 19-05.
As is.
As is.
So that's with the 0-foot setback. I'll second that motion.
and without the other setbacks the applicant wanted?
Yeah, with those still.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
Commissioner Burnworth,
Yes.
Vice Chair Deanne,
No.
Commissioner Hammernes,
No.
Commissioner Harvey.
Yes.
So does this have to come back at the next meeting now?
What's tonight? I gotta go to city council and spend another, I don't have that time, guys, and I spent another $3,000 to do it. We have to pull building permits by 12/31 this year, or the deal's dead, because now solar comes into play, and it's gonna cost the affordable housing people another $20,000 per house.
And those people are gonna pay for their solar panels over and over and over again, and it doesn't make sense.
These are the little things, the squawks or quirks that makes a developer not want to come back and do business in town. If you really feel the two of you need the 3 feet, go with it, and we'll see what happens with the next project and where it'll be.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coyne. We're going to move on to reports.
No, you got it.
You could make that doesn't necessarily bring the matter to an end.
Okay.
Somebody else could make a different motion.
Okay.
You're not required to, but you could.
Hold on. Am I allowed to make a-
I'll make a motion to approve it with a 3-foot setback and the 10-foot living space and garage. But I don't want to stop this project.
Okay, motion. Do I hear a second?
Correction, I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Burnworth?
I make a motion to approve it with a 3-foot setback.
You
And,
want to-
and I think you also intended the living space
Yes,
setback.
the living
garage
space and the
setback.
garage setback also,
Okay.
as proposed.
10 and 15.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, call for the vote.
Commissioner Burnworth,
Yes.
Deanne,
Yes.
Hammernes,
Yes.
and Harvey.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coyne.
Thank you. Thanks for your effort.
Okay, we move on to reports, commissioner reports. Anyone? Any updates?
I have no updates.
No updates at
No
this time.
updates? Staff report?
I just have a quick update. There's a project going on 11th Street, it's a storm drain and the overlay project. It's close to traffic and it's going to be like that for about 60 days. We just put barricades on it and a traffic control measures, so it's going to be chaos for a couple of months.
11th Street, you said?
On 11th Street,
11th
yes.
Street, okay.
What's the nearest cross street?
It's from Imperial Avenue to C Street
When did it start?
today.
Oh, okay. And you're saying about 60 days?
60 days, correct. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Guess I adjourn the meeting? That was a rough one.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.